Imagine waking up to find an entire town gone. No people, no voices, no signs of a struggle, just homes left standing, meals unfinished, and doors wide open. This wasn't a ghost story. This was a real place. And to this day, no one can explain how an entire community simply vanished overnight. Today, on the Dusty Files, we open the case of Cold Creek, the town that disappeared. Cold Creek was a small mining town tucked deep in the Appalachian Mountains during the late 1950s. No more than 400 people called it home. They were miners, farmers, shopkeepers, and their families. Life there was simple but tightly bound. Neighbors watched over one another. Stories passed down through families for generations. The church stood at the town's center, and every Sunday the bells rang out, calling the entire community to gather under its roof. The heartbeat of the town was the coal mine, where most of the men worked. The rest ran small shops, farmed the land, or kept the town's few businesses alive. It wasn't wealthy, and it wasn't famous, but it was home, the kind of place where doors stayed unlocked and life moved at its own quiet rhythm. That is, until one winter morning in December 1959, when a delivery truck carrying food and supplies drove into Cold Creek and discovered something no one would ever forget. The driver expected to find the streets alive with people going about their day. Instead, he found silence. At first, he assumed the townsfolk were all at the mine. But as he drove further in, the silence began to feel wrong. In kitchens, meals sat half-eaten, steam still clinging to the plates. Radios were left on, buzzing only with static. Lamps burned in living rooms as if their owners had just stepped out. At the schoolhouse, lessons were half-written on the chalkboard, with books scattered across desks as though children had stood up in the middle of class and walked away. The church doors stood wide open, but its pews were empty. Not a single person sat inside. And it wasn't just people who were missing. Livestock, pets, even horses from the stables were gone. It looked as though, in one single moment, the entire population of Cold Creek had stood up, walked away, and never returned. Word spread quickly. Neighboring towns sent people to investigate, followed by the police, and soon federal agents arrived. What they found was just as unsettling. There were no signs of violence, no evidence of a struggle, no plans for evacuation. Cold Creek had simply vanished. Law enforcement searched tirelessly for answers. Helicopters scanned the forests. Rivers were dragged. Dogs combed the mountainside. But what stood out most was what wasn't there. There were no footprints leading out of town. No wagon tracks. No tire marks. No letters, no notes, no warnings of departure. The mine was searched from top to bottom. Some speculated a gas leak had poisoned the town, forcing an evacuation. But if that were true, why hadn't anyone taken clothes, valuables, or even their pets? The FBI opened a file on Cold Creek. This was 1959, the height of Cold War paranoia. Nuclear testing, government secrecy, and fears of sabotage loomed large in the minds of Americans. Federal agents considered whether the town had been targeted for an experiment or relocated in secret. But no connection was ever found. Slowly, the case went cold. As with any mystery, theories began to swirl. One theory was accidental poisoning. Perhaps the mine released carbon monoxide, driving people to flee in panic. But again, there were no bodies, no tracks, no sign of where they went. Another theory was mass relocation. Some believed the government moved the town for weapons testing or secret projects. Yet no records of compensation, relocation, or military activity ever surfaced. Then there were whispers about cult activity. Some pointed to Reverend Elijah Ward, a preacher in town known for his fiery sermons about an approaching second coming. Could he have led his flock into the mountains in a mass exodus, or even persuaded them into a mass suicide? Yet no remains were ever discovered, and the mountains kept their silence. Finally, there were the supernatural theories. Townsfolk from nearby communities reported seeing strange lights in the sky in the days leading up to the disappearance. Some described hearing sirens at night, followed by a suffocating silence. For these witnesses, Cold Creek was not taken by men, but by something far stranger. As the years passed, new and unsettling details trickled out. There was the lifeboat theory. Fishermen downstream swore they had seen a cluster of wooden rafts drifting silently along the river just days after the town vanished. But when authorities searched, they found nothing. Then came the diary. Decades later, explorers who ventured into the abandoned homes of Cold Creek discovered a miner's diary. This final entry was dated the night before the disappearance. It read, "He says we must follow. Everyone has agreed. The children are afraid, but they say it will be quick. I can hear them gathering outside. The bells are ringing, but the church is empty." The entry ended abruptly, as if the writer had been interrupted mid-sentence. And then there were the ghost sightings. In the 1980s, hikers claimed to see figures moving through Cold Creek at night. Curtains fluttered as though someone was inside. Lights glowed faintly in windows. Some swore they even heard the tolling of church bells. Yet when investigators returned, they found only dust, silence, and decay. To this day, Cold Creek remains one of America's strangest unsolved mysteries. There are no records of relocation, no mass graves, no survivors, just a town left frozen in time, as though its people had stepped out for a moment and never returned. Was it mass panic? A government cover-up? Or something darker? The truth is buried in the mountains, locked away with the 400 souls who vanished into the night. And that is the case of the vanishing town, a community erased overnight. Was it human error, a secret experiment, or something far darker? Let us know your theory in the comments below. One thing is certain, Cold Creek has left behind nothing but questions, and another file added to the dusty files.